Hey guys, and welcome back to the final debate for the Sales Revival Conference 2022. So this topic we're talking about is AI is quite well established within the areas of process automation and data analytics. How well is it performing as a lead generation tool? Now, I've really put this debate and brought this debate on because I see that this is a very big need. Everybody's crying out for leads. So I brought together a real team of specialists, all who I believe are experts in lead generation and how they're collecting leads and how they're helping their communities. And I want to, without further ado, I'm going to introduce everybody. We've got first Tobias Hagenau, the CEO of Aworks. Hey, Tobias, how you doing, sir?
Hi, Liam. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah. We've got Stephen Lowisz, the CEO of Enterprise Sales Institute. Stephen, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir.
Brilliant. We've got Riaz Kanani. I'm sorry if I pronounced your names wrong.
That's right, Kanani.
He's the CEO of Radiate B2B. We've got Eris Morris, the CSO, of Copy Factory. How you doing, Eric?
Hey, Leon. How's things?
Brilliant. And then we've got Denise Bachman. She has recently started her own business, so she's the founder of Denise Murtha Bachman. Yeah, sorry, hadn't changed it on my thing there. Right, guys. I just want to tackle this debate slightly differently. I mean, like I said, the reason why I put this one on the show and the reason why I've had this one as the last topic is I see this as a very big need for our communities and for the people struggling with this. So what I want to do, I brought you guys all on as experts in various fields of how you're generating leads. And we want to sit down and talk about how you're actually doing it, how your methodology, what is the advantages, what's the disadvantages, and then see from there kind of where we can fill in the gaps and take it from that stance. Is that okay? Yeah. So Tobias, you are it's a kind of paid ads, expert. Please.
Yeah, that's what we do. Most of our lead gen, maybe to give some context, we generate B2B leads for a B2B SaaS product. We help teams organize with Aworks. So if you do task management, etc., we're the tool for you. And we generate 90% of those leads via performance marketing, so ads based. And that is very AI driven. So we try to collect as much data as we can on our leads, try to score them as much as we can, use user data to enrich that, etc., etc. And then we send that back to the ad platforms for them to optimize our campaigns based on the results that we are able to deliver back. So that is sort of the feedback loop that we try to use as much as possible and to optimize as much as possible. So that's sort of the background that we have there.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. I mean, Tobias has been very, very modest here, guys. I mean, this guy started a business, pretty much in the peak of Corona, and jumped his leads from 1,500 leads that he was getting a month to close to when I spoke to him last time in summer, it was probably about 6,000. How much are you doing now? What, 10,000 a month or so?
That's an interesting question. So the numbers are about right. That's an interesting question though, because we haven't scaled the number of leads further, but instead we've increased the optimization. So the number is roughly the same, but the output out of those 6,000 leads has tripled, I would say, roughly. And that is mainly due to us having collected more and better and accurate data to feed back into our campaigns and to sort of figure out what the correct scoring KPIs are to really make that happen. So the number has stayed roughly the same, but the output has increased significantly. So that the game has shifted a little for us.
Brilliant. I just want to bring Riaz in now quickly because Riaz is also a performance marketing specialist as well. So Riaz, what do you do? I mean, and how do you how do you help your customers or your community generate leads?
Yeah, it's we're an intent data platform, so we're collecting thousands and thousands of feeds through partners, through publishers, that we collect company information that allows us to predict which companies are actually interested in having a conversation. And so to Tobias's point about increasing that conversion, so that it drives meetings. That's exactly what we're about.
Yeah. Brilliant. Stephen, you are very similar to myself. We're almost like opposite ends of the spectrum. So Stephen's like my counterpart in America. Works with startups, SMEs, and you help them to, kind of generate traction and give awareness to their business. So, without telling everybody how you're doing it, but yeah, you could shed a bit more light on there, because your business is much more evolved than my one.
Yeah, so there's two parts of our business. One is RevOps consulting and integrations, automation, attribution, the really nerdy side of sales and marketing, as I put it. And then the other is helping with go-to-market strategies and more of a consulting format. I've been a head of sales and marketing at a few companies, so there's two components here. But the personally, lead gen comes from, in large part, referrals, but then we drink our own Kool-Aid. We do our own outbound. We do our own ads, etc. I use AI particularly with intent-based marketing. So it sounds like Riaz and I should chat after this. Just throwing that out there. But I use a lot of intent-based data.
Okay, brilliant. Eric, you are slightly different. You're a specialist. So these guys, Eric is so using AI, as a copyright, but these guys are more niche, not on the mass scale, but really high qualified, what I call as a lead as opposed to an interest. I think there is a big difference there. But, so Eric, tell us a bit more about your business, what you do and how you guys do it.
Yeah, so we essentially help sales teams streamline their copywriting and contact personalization process using AI to save, on average, each SDR over 14 hours a week in time spent doing those tasks. But in terms of like a lead gen strategy, we're purely drinking your Kool-Aid, doing only cold email marketing, testing different messaging, testing different types of personalized sentences. But at the moment, we're getting about a 5% meeting book rate on cold emails. So it's been working very well for us.
Brilliant. Okay, and Denise, so Denise, you are slightly different because you've come in as an AI specialist, someone who's worked with lots of different AI technologies and platforms. So you kind of have a very broad experience of what is available out there on the market and how to actually adopt and utilize this technology to get the most out of it. So yeah, if you give us your opinion in terms of lead generation, which seems to be the craze that people are going through, how would you advise, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, so there is an amazing solution that enables you to have a conversation, or has the virtual assistant to have a conversation with those potential leads and turn them from cold leads into warm leads. And it does that in a more natural and human way than a chat bot. It actually listens to not just intent, or it looks at the intent, but as well at the context of the phrasing. And based on natural language understanding versus NLP, it will then give you the next best step, or it will take on the next best step. And at the time that it is able to pass on to the the salesperson like myself, it will have already vetted out a lot of information. And by then it's actually a person who's a hand raiser who really wants more information. So it does a lot of the work so that it's consistent each time it's reaching out, rather than someone like myself who goes to bed and gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Or takes vacation or is sick. It's always on, always going. So that helps a tremendous amount.
Brilliant. And I think we've heard it, and I want to come back to that later, Denise, and definitely somebody I want to speak to you afterwards, because it's something I'm kind of looking for as a gap in my community. So just to give you guys an overview of SMC and what we've done and how I've changed my business over the last couple of years. So since Corona, I realized, I'm actually a lead generation expert. I started my sales career in creating high value lead generation, 8-10 page reports, for the likes of Microsoft, Vendava, those big players, and really qualifying and making sure that you're giving proper, what I call leads, and not just interested prospects. So that's why I started. But what I've really transitioned over the last couple of years is that I said, okay, look, there's a lot of slog in doing this. I realized that because of, this kind of, being pushed onto LinkedIn and, people, been sold, for lack of a better word, crap wrapped in a nice bow and nice marketing. I realized that one of my core strengths was my network. So I built trust with my network, and I could very, very quickly, someone comes to me, okay, look, this is what the solution is. I'm like, oh, A, B, and C would be very interested in that. And I could very quickly get them into those people to get a meeting and, and facilitate that. And then from there, when they use that as a kind of a platform to work with my company, from there, I would have a range of lead generation partners standing behind me, so about 20 odd lead generation partners standing behind me to really then to give them more influx of leads. So I've actually kind of moved away from lead generation, which is kind of weird, and really focusing on, taking that lead from an interest, nurturing it and closing it. But I want to just, take a step back. We've seen and heard of a variety of different methods. What are the advantages and the disadvantages for these? Because I want to really just educate the audience here, because I think a lot of them don't really understand. They want people, they're just struggling to get in contact with customers. And that's all they're thinking is that, lead, we need to get in contact with customers. But what are the benefits, advantages, and disadvantages of these various solutions?
I'll chime in real quick. I think the key is qualifying AI, because I think right now it's just a buzzword that everyone wants to throw on for a couple of if-then statements.
Mm-hmm.
I want to qualify that question with that.
Sorry. What did you say?
I want to qualify your question with, I think we're talking about real AI, not a couple of if-then statements and a nice AI label.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That's what I said at the beginning. When I first started this panel debate, I mean, AI does not mean automation intelligence; it means artificial intelligence. So yeah, definitely no. We are talking about AI, but I think I want to move past AI and let's talk about lead generation. I mean, I think AI is a brilliant source of of engaging and creating that initial engagement with customers. But I think let's make it a bit broader. Let's talk about tech in sales, and let's talk about the different types of technology. But I want to really understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of these different techs from your guys' perspectives in terms of helping customers to generate leads.
Well, I'll start. So when you're talking about a virtual assistant versus a chat bot versus nothing at all, what you're talking about is someone or a virtual assistant who can, the pros to that is that you've got someone who's continuously touching and making and creating touch points. If you think about the average salesperson, any solution that you use, the average salesperson manually as themselves, they're going to go after the hot leads. They're going to go after the leads that seem to get a little bit more traction. If they have someone assisting them, then those leads that they don't think are really hot, that actually potentially could be really hot, that they've left sitting stagnant for a while, can continuously be touched by someone else. Because the reality is all salespeople are, and whether they're BDRs or SDRs or true AEs, it doesn't really matter. They're all in this state where they're going to go after the things they're getting more traction in. And if they're not getting traction in something, it's just going to sit and stagnate. And you've taken a potentially warmer lead. It's not really a warm lead, but a warmer lead, and left it hanging. And so having a solution in place, whether it's something like a virtual assistant, a chat bot, it gives you the ability to continuously touch people so that no one's left in the sidelines. And you could take someone who you thought was potentially not a lead at all and could be probably your largest deal. And as you're going through your sales cycles, we're always working on trying to close the next deal. You still leave all those other people behind. Having something there to continuously touch them is so key to make sure, because as you said, Leon, it is all based on relationships now. And the more you can continue that relationship, the more they'll be willing to do business with you.
Brilliant. I mean, I wanted to bring that, throw that back at Eric and Stephen specifically, because we have working in sales now. I think obviously one of the things that we would all agree on is that in sales, and to be when we're all expert at sales guys, you have a variety of different prospects. So you have your short-term leads. These are the ones that are hot leads. This is what Denise is talking about, the ones that are going to close. Yeah. But I think obviously where we've been successful is that we've obviously nurtured the medium to long-term leads as well and kept those flowing through the pipeline. Now you have these cold leads, what we call what Denise is referring to, cold leads. I refer to them as tire kickers. These people kicking the tires along. They have no intention of closing. They don't know what they want. And they are a waste of time. What is your perspective on that? Should we invest time in nurturing those, is at some point, is there an intelligent decision that has to come and say, stop, these people, they're not going to buy, they're never going to buy, or the amount of investment versus the return on investment is not worth it?
I think it's our responsibility in sales and marketing to generate interest. Somebody may not be willing to chat now, but that doesn't mean that they aren't in the future. And I think a lot of, for example, lead scoring, AI, et cetera, is focused on automating everybody out that's not ready to buy now. Mm-hmm. And that's not good business, especially at the enterprise level. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many of my Fortune 500 deals took between 6 months to 24 months. Mm. And we need to be okay with that. That doesn't mean that you don't spend more time on the hot leads ready to go, but sales and marketing need to work together to nurture those other prospects, the tire kickers now, but they need to nurture them and give them reason to stop kicking that tire down the road. And I think AI, in large part, while I'm a big proponent of it used correctly, it is too focused on how can we automate our work and do less work, whereas it should be how can we make this the most beneficial relationship for the prospect possible.
Okay. I'm going to remember that point, please, Tobias. I'm going to come back to you with that one. Eric, what's your...
Yeah, like I think it obviously depends on the size of the company and what stage you're at. If you're a startup, you don't have bandwidth, you don't have time, you don't have resources, you're going to have to start focusing your time efficiently or try build systems to sort of cover everyone. Now, going back to Stephen's point, I think it's really important to try build a relationship with your leads. So whether that is, let's say, putting that extra little bit of effort to try personalize something or try give them some value to try build that relationship, I think it's key. Especially if you're trying to prospect over like a 6 or 9 month period.
Yeah, and I think that there's a big differentiation here, and I think obviously, Stephen, you did have a big focus in the past when you was doing sales on these Fortune 500 companies. So yes, I think when you're doing that, I think that definitely you need to. Tire kickers or not, it is about generating interest and nurturing those people, because they do have a 6 to 18 month sales cycle minimum, and you cannot get away from that. But Tobias, I think I wanted to come back to you now. When now we're talking about a solution which is more low touch. Very short sales cycle, very, very, I don't want to say cheap, but, something that is not as high value, which is definitely the market that me and you work in. What's your opinion on that? Do you nurture some of these big long-term leads until they get down, or is at some point you kind of the focus is...
Fair point. I was thinking about that when Stephen was talking about his Fortune 500 deals. Obviously, they do need a different sales process than our 6,000 leads that we have flowing every month on a continuous basis. We simply can't. We can't nurture all of them with any form of personal touch. It's simply not possible, and it's also not it doesn't make sense for us either. So what is super important for us, again, is some form of lead scoring, obviously, because out of those, let's make it 6,000, the top 10%, those are the ones that we need to identify as early as possible in order to be able to actually nurture them, and to put our effort into those 10% of deals that are in the sort of the mass of leads coming in every month, and identifying the factors that make these leads high potentials early on is sometimes really difficult, because we need intent data. That is one thing that Riaz can probably tell us more about. But intent data is really difficult when you have companies in the, I don't know, they have 10 employees. What sort of intent data are they going to leave on the internet? It's almost impossible. So what we need is actual live interaction data. What do they, what responses do they leave in our sign-up questionnaire? What's the activity they show within the first couple of hours in the tool? Do they invite their colleagues? Things like that are all factors that we try to identify as early as possible, so that right after sign up, hours after they sign up, we have some initial scoring for, is that a high potential lead, and do we really need to invest personal touch and time into that lead, or is that a lead that is unlikely to be high potential and then goes into an automated email, webinar, and all of that assistant flow? And those are super important. If you have inflows on the scale of thousands of leads, the automation and the high quality automation of the long tail is super important. I agree with Denise on that. It's super important, because all the time leads, then your scoring turns out to be wrong. So you have someone scored as a long tail unlikely lead, and then they, you know, they were just slow, and then you need to be able to still identify them, have a convenient process for them to actually switch gears, if you will, and then become a high potential lead. So I guess that's sort of the way that we think about these. It's it has to be, all of that has to be automated, because it's not possible to do a touch-based sales process for all of them, and identifying the top few percent that really are the ones that are likely to convert is the most important factor in that pipeline.
And I think I would definitely second that, because I mean, for me, and I think SMC is very much in the very kind of sitting in the middle ground here, because my solutions, my services, they are actually, they're six-figure deals, so we're not talking about small deals, but even I have to think about the capacity, and there's a capacity issue that I have. So I can only take on a certain amount of deals per year, and because we're not talking about monthly, it's not a quick turnaround. No, when I have a customer, I have a customer life cycle of 12 to 18 months, sometimes up to 3 years. So I have to really think about, okay, I've got this amount of time to close X amount of business, and it doesn't matter about, I don't have pipeline. I haven't done pipeline, management for, nearly probably 10 years. If a customer is not going to close in a 3-month window, then it's done. Do you know what I mean? Because in that 3-month window, I will close my quota for the next year. And it doesn't matter about nurturing that pipeline, because when they do come through, I won't be able to deal with them. I have the capacity. I'm at full capacity. So I think obviously there is a thing about understanding your business as well in relation to what you're doing. Now, I think what I've tried to do is have this partner ecosystem where I can actually divvy off these leads, because I'm noticing that a lot of people coming to me and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Look, take these, take them. I want to just go back to Riaz. I mean, we've heard a lot about this intent data and performance marketing. Can you please explain to me a bit more about what this is? I mean, I've heard this word buzzword, and I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I'm not a marketer.
It is getting a lot of hype. And it is important to actually understand a little bit about how it works, because to Tobias's point, like, in some ways, this is the beauty and the challenge of B2B, right? It's different depending on who your customer is. And intent data, what we're doing is we are identifying companies on the fly as they browse the internet, and we look at their activity just like we would look at activity on your own websites to predict, based on this surge, this increase in activity, they are they are clearly giving attention to a particular topic. And if there's one thing that, if you think about your day to day and what you do, if you are spending time on a particular problem, you're doing that intentionally. You don't randomly pick up, research tasks to go and look at in the work sense. And so that's what intent data is about. Now, but as Tobias was saying, is that you can only really identify companies that are, I guess, mid-size and above. So maybe that's as small as 100 or so employees, but certainly the larger the company, the more activity you can see, the more easy it is for you to identify, and the more easy it is to then say, well, look, this person is looking at not just this single topic. Because when you research, you don't research a single topic, you research that topic, the topic next to it, another topic next to it. And when you see that level of research, that's a really big indicator that you should be having a conversation. At the same time, though, it is, what intent data does is it tells you everybody across the spectrum, right? So you're catching everybody who's towards the end of the buying cycle. They're ready to talk to vendors. They're ready to have a conversation. But you're also catching the people, that 6 months out, 12 months out, where they're just starting to research and just starting to understand. And so you do need to nurture and build.
Okay, that's very interesting. So Eric, this seems like something that's obviously, without actually knowing what the buzzwords is, but knowing how you guys do your business, this is something that very much is aligned with how you guys are doing it. Maybe you can, give some more insights, because what Eric does is they actually look at your feeds. They look at the LinkedIn feeds. So they're actually seeing what information these guys posting, what they're commenting on, what they're looking at, and they use that as their engagement process to actually, that starts off, that's the trigger for them to actually start connecting and contacting people. So maybe Eric, you can just comment on that and just give us a bit more insights on that. I mean, is this still classed as intent data, what you're doing, or is it something different?
I would say it is, in a way. So what we can do in the platform is we can take in any type of unstructured data, content, or research. So what we're doing as a prospecting strategy at the moment is we're finding posts that people are engaging on that's relevant to our sort of target market. So for us, it'd be like anything about sales, cold email marketing, so on. And what we're doing is we're finding the content that people are engaging with, and then finding the contact details of those people, and then contacting them about our solution, but also mentioning the post engagement that they've engaged with. And that's it's been pretty good in tying a potential need because of the type of content that they're engaging with to our solution. And so far, it's been converting very well.
Okay, I mean, what kind of conversion rates are we talking about? Just out of interest here.
Yeah. So our demand gen strategy is simply just pure cold email. We don't do any cold calling or LinkedIn outreach, but we're generating about 16% response rates on cold emails and about a 4 to 5% meeting book rate.
Okay, cool.
That's amazing, by the way, 16% on a cold email.
Okay, really? Okay, I get. Yeah, okay. Listen, I get. So, I think obviously for me, I get a much higher email response rate. My email response rate at the moment is about 50%, 60% at the moment. But I think what I'm doing differently is that I'm targeting people who have a problem, but nobody wants to speak to them because they think that they haven't got money. They think that they're too small. So I'm looking at the bottom of the barrel. Who are the people, who desperately need it? They're back to the wall. They've got no option. They've got really great solutions. They don't know that they've got a problem. They're trying to do something, but they don't really know, that there is any potential solutions out there. So I'm looking for these startups, small startups, really innovative technologies, things that I know that in my network I can sell really, really quickly to. But because they are maybe bootstrapped, they're not funded. They're bootstrapped companies. They're not out there actively looking for solutions because they don't think they don't have the money to do it. And I'll find that I'll go in there and be like, hey, I've seen it, I love it. I can do this, and this for you. Yeah, we've heard it all before. Watch, okay. Don't even need a contract. Here's a gentleman's agreement. Boom, couple of leads. They're like, wow, okay. Now let's get a contract. And that's how I'll do it very, very quickly. And so my targeting is, okay, just to give you some numbers, this year I only do targeting Q4. 45 companies are targeted, I selected. I contacted 42, got 21 leads and closed 14 deals. But then I only do it at one period and then I'm closed off for the rest of the year. So yeah, I think it's very, very different strategies. But I think Denise, what I really like about yours is that it's not that, maybe you can help me here. It's not that initial finding the lead. It's once you found it, it's that nurturing process. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
It is correct, yes.
Yeah. And I think for me, I would like to obviously just see you and Riaz and maybe even Eric coming up on this. What do you find in the engagement rate and how is that converting? Because I always thought that this part is where the salesperson actually really adds value here. But you're saying that AI can do this very, very well. And I'm very interested to understand this in a bit more depth.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, with an AI solution like a virtual chat, you can still have the sales rep or human engaged at any point in the process. So if for some reason that lead takes, the intent is it needs to take some action that a virtual chat can't, you as the sales rep are paying attention to the process. So you may not have to actively engage in it for a period of time, but you're looking at it because it's notifying you every single time there is some sort of intent or some sort of potential action that one could take. And if you step in as the sales rep, you can halt the automation AI process and you can engage as a real human, and then you can put it back into the queue and update the notes and allow it to continue its process. So they still have a human that can engage, but it's being driven by some automation technology and some AI in data that will enable them to do some of that work effort for you when it's just mundane.
And what kind of target companies are you looking at? I mean, I'm seeing everybody nodding here, like, this is very interesting. What kind of target companies are you targeting for this?
It doesn't matter. It's a SaaS-based solution, so you can target the small startups, or you can go for the large organizations. I mean, ideally, what you want to do is not replace humans. You want to augment them, and that's the motto behind any AI solution. You want to augment humans and not replace. And if you can enable a process where a human can still be engaged, you have the ability then to truly nurture a true lead into a hot lead, because you're still engaging as a human in some aspects of it.
Okay. And we are talking AI technology. We're not talking automation where you basically set all your sequences, as you know what I mean? And, you know, I'm sorry, I had some really bad experiences with these automation, things. I tried them all out just as a background. I tried them all out because I wanted, before I came in there, started slating technology. I wanted to know what I was getting involved in. And I saw these things were sending one solution I tried. It took 127 emails or companies it contacted to get one lead, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And so you're burning out my leads, mate. You destroy my destroying my reputation on the market. Stop. No. So it is AI based, yeah. So
it is. Okay. It's using natural language understanding versus natural language processing. So it's actually looking at intent. It's looking at context of phrasing. It's looking for individual keywords. It's several different components, so multiple different models in the background that's continuously learning, and it will then act on and give you actionable insights as well.
Okay, brilliant, guys. The rest of you four, how are we nurturing leads, and how are you guys doing that? I mean, Tobias, you already said that, you know, I mean, you're kind of not, you're just pulling out the top 10%, and I get that. I mean, but I mean, I still think that there is really, this is a bit of an interesting. You guys not? Is this something of interest to you guys? How are you guys nurturing leads, or would you like to start doing nurturing leads?
So I'll answer that in just a second. But one thing that I think is worth noting, and we're kind of putting it on display here, is that the nuances matter. And that's one thing that AI doesn't always get. The difference between a 50% response rate and a 4% response rate or interest rate, rather, is massively different depending on the target market you're going after, the service you're providing, etc. If you're doing, let's say, software development, like it seems everyone and their brother does these days, there's a billion agencies out there.
Yeah.
4% interest rate is just mind blowing. If you have a very tight knit group and you're taking a more relationship driven approach, that's very different. I think one of the failures of AI today, and it will change as AI gets more data and learns, of course, I get how AI works, but it doesn't take into account nuances. I've never used Copy Factory, so anything that I'm about to say negates anything about Copy Factory. I'll throw that out there. But for example, there's a lot of copy tools that I have tried where they say they do some personalization based on, let's say, their persona, the LinkedIn, etc. And then you realize when you take the same service and you try using it across multiple personas, it gives you the same damn message, almost identical.
Yeah.
The nuances matter, company size matters, etc. As for nurturing, I think lead scoring and all that stuff is great. I'm not going to dispute that. Again, it depends on the size of your company, what you're offering, etc. But I think one of the biggest things, taking AI out just for a second, is sales and marketing work very siloed. Marketing is top of the funnel. Great. We got a crap ton of leads. I'm American, so I'm blunt. We have a crap ton of leads at the bottom of the funnel. We need sales, and everything else is just kind of a blur. If you have a sales funnel that isn't also incorporating lead nurturing through ads, through content, etc., all at the same time, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
So I mean, Stephen, I think you're very in a unique position because you've done this for enterprise companies. So we understand that for an enterprise company, there does need to be that human touch and there does need to be that human interactions from the marketing, get it out. I always find when the enterprise companies get it out from the marketing as soon as possible and get it into the sales. But I think when we're talking about the lower touch, lower value leads, it's more about keeping it in the marketing for as long as possible and then give it to the sales right at the end. How you now work and help startups and SMEs. So how are you, because you said you did outbound at the beginning, do you change your strategy based on the type of company and the nuance that you're dealing with?
100%. I mean, again, I think the nuance is everything. So, but one of the things that I heard from a speaker I had on in one of my programs, I think put it more eloquently than I ever have, which is people don't care as much about personalization anymore. They care about resonation. We all know that we can go on somebody's LinkedIn and pull in an article and try to praise them for how awesome it is. And they typically just don't give a shit anymore, to put it bluntly. They want to know that you understand their problem and that you can help them. It doesn't mean that you go with a problem solution pitch, but they need to understand that you understand their issues, where they're at, the nuances to their job, not to keep using the buzzword nuance over and over, but it's the best way of putting it. So didn't mean to go off on a little bit.
No. I think that's really great. No, I think that's really great because I think there is this very big hype about, this hyper personalization. And for me, I'm hearing a lot of people use the word, but I'm not seeing it in practice. And I don't know what you guys are thinking about that, and where maybe you're going to shoot me down. I mean, you guys, please.
I'll go on that because I mean I've spent 20 years talking about personalization and engagement and all those sorts of things and how important it is. But when it comes to, for me, marketing personalization and sales personalization are very, very different things. When it comes to marketing personalization, you can talk about the broad areas that you are involved in that relate to that particular company, and sales personalization is more about that human touch, but within, and I actually prefer the word context to personalization, because actually what you're trying to understand is what's the context for that particular company. And so it's less about, and again, I think with the difference that we're seeing in the conversations we're having between the enterprise level sale and a more mass sale from still a B2B standpoint, is that need for the receiving person to feel like you understand them, understanding that they've clicked on a link or read a post or liked a post further down the sales cycle just doesn't wash. At the very beginning, it might help you to get in, but my big issue with it today is it often feels templatized, and as soon as it feels like a template, you've lost the response unless they're really interested. And let's face it, if they're really interested, we've got them anyway. So
yeah. Eric, Tobias, you guys want to comment on this?
Yeah, like I think like Riaz is correct. Like you don't want the user or the potential prospect in the sales stage feeling like they're just getting added into another email sequence that's just boilerplate and everyone's getting it.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen mentioned that like a lot of tools are generating like content and it's boilerplate and it's pretty much not along the lines of what you want to generate. We realized this as a platform and we built the features in there to allow people to actually train the AI based on their desired output. So what we're trying to do is, again, help businesses create custom messaging for potential prospects that resonates with them, and bringing that context in about the pain points, about the potential solution for them, just to try and make that sales process a bit more relevant to them.
Brilliant. And let's think back to Tobias' business. Let's say you had 6,000 leads a month to deal with. How? But and Tobias said they're dealing with the top 10%, so that's 600. Yeah, there's 5,400 leads there left on the table. Now they've downloaded your trial, they've interacted with you guys. There is some level, even at a basic level, of interest. How do we help increase the conversion rate on that?
Well, maybe a little bit of perspective on the automation and the nurturing and the long tail content that we send out as well. I guess a lot of that content that gets sent out and personalized doesn't get interacted with because it's just bad content. Just to put that out there, the problem is often when it comes to content at that scale that you send out a couple hundred times every day, the reason that people don't interact with it is not that there's the wrong personalization intro sentence in it. I mean, that is part of it, but the large chunk is it's mostly just bad content. So I guess even people late in the sales funnel will appreciate getting added to an email sequence that actually delivers relevant content to their onboarding experience. But I mean, check out a couple of large-scale onboarding sequences that you get added to when you try SaaS tools, and most of the content is just not helpful. It might be personalized, which is nice. It's a nice AI demo case, but the content itself is just really bad. And I think a lot of the long-tail nurturing needs to be invested in high-quality content at scale, rather than the miniature personalization items that in the end make it super hyper personal. That is fine for high value targets and you can invest in that and so on and so on. But at scale, what you need is high quality content.
But is that possible to do this, to automate this and to do this AI high quality content at scale? Is that possible now? Is it going to be possible in the future?
I actually say yes, it's possible, but it's difficult. Right, and it's about a lot of things. So take Drift, right? I mean, we all have heard of Drift. One of a million other chatbots out there, yet they managed to create content that completely managed to create a whole new segment. Right now, in some ways, that segment I think has died a death. 4 or 5 years later, a little bit, right? Because it wasn't maintained, and I think they lost their way a little bit. But in those first couple of years, you're talking about great content that connected, that built a movement, and it wasn't really anything about the customer, right? It wasn't anything about the company that they're selling to. It was about the market that they were creating and why it was great. And so it is possible. It's a little bit different to what you were talking about, Tobias, in terms of the onboarding strategy, but it's connected, I think, because if someone's going through an onboarding journey, then they've signed up to your platform already. They've seen your platform. So their experience in that initial few minutes of being in your platform has a big impact on how likely they are to then engage with the first message that they receive, and obviously how good that first message is then starts to propagate through. Most of the time, onboarding messaging, as you say, is very generic. It doesn't really build any connection, and so you just reach for the delete button straight away.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think that's a very. I mean, we as all sales leaders, we're getting pounded with content. Yeah, and what percentage of those actually do you engage with? Do you delete? Yeah, I mean, and do you react on? Just throw out some numbers out there, please. I mean, it's just because I know my numbers have decreased massively. I think I'm not actively looking for that unsubscribe button. Where is it?
Well, look, I mean, I spent 10, 15 years in email marketing, and so I have some of the data to hand, right? But I think it's something like 87, 90% ish of people will check the FOM address, the FOM name first, right? They'll do it subconsciously, because at the end of the day, if it's an email that's from your mum, you don't want to be clicking delete by accident. So you will subconsciously check the FOM name. But then, of course, it's all about the subject line. We all know in sales the vast change in performance based off that subject line. And how we all see the cheats, right? We've all seen people try and put "re" at the start or "forward" at the start, or those sorts of things that might work once, but let's face it, doesn't work consistently.
I think something Riaz said earlier is key here. Context is everything, and I'll give the example. I was talking to a client of mine, or new client, maybe a week or so ago, and we were going into his goals, his targets, etc. CAC that he wants to meet, right? Customer acquisition costs, increasing his ACV, all those fun metrics. And then at the end, he mentioned, oh yeah, and I'm trying to raise around. And I'm thinking that has a profound impact on how you approach your growth strategy tenfold. So context is key here, I think, more than anything. Approaching a company that's actively fundraising, they're going to have very, very different pain points than somebody who's bootstrapped or just doesn't give a rip, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we often negate that. I think personas are often looked at, for example, as demographics. How much do they make? Male or female, all that garbage. It's what are they responsible for? What is their boss breathing down their neck for? What are the KPIs they have to report back? That context unlocks just ridiculous growth.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the problem that we're seeing out in the Salesforce today. Take AI aside, it's that we're not going beyond just the normal personalization. We're not really understanding their business. If you want to make a sale, you have to come with an intent to solve a problem that they have. And you've got to start digging and understanding what that problem is. Now, you may get it all wrong, but when you have when you try to get their attention, you want to, like Riaz said, it's about the subject line, but you want it to be something that you think that they really, truly have a problem with. Now, if you get it wrong, if you've got a great subject line, but you've approached it in a way, they're going to be, wait a minute, that's not our true problem. You've still gotten them engaged. But what we are forgetting about is really how to engage with them more than just personalization, but selling to their business needs and solving a problem.
But then I think I personally would argue one of my successes, or the reason why I'm successful in my business, is because I don't automate anything. I use technologies to help me write my emails, but I send it and I engage with it. There is nothing automated in my process. And I think that's the only reason why I can get these high rates. There's the only reason. Is there a way to prospect at scale and a really great, robust way? Anybody can say to me, there's a robust strategy to prospect at scale? And I think, that is a question out there. I actually want to know.
You have three types of prospecting, in my opinion. You have shotgun approach, which is what we call spam now, where you're just blasting everyone and their brother with the same message. Then you have account-based marketing. Yeah. Then you have account-based marketing, which is just like it sounds. You go contact 50 people in one company, right? But let's go back to the context that I was just talking about. I can go approach a, let's say, seed-funded SaaS company in Northwestern US, so Silicon Valley, right? Of similar size companies. And let's say they're low ticket to mid ticket SaaS. I can prospect the founder the same way. So I'm going to gather 50, 100 of those same people and put them on a list. And it's going to come off extremely personalized because it resonates with the context. I can do the same thing with their chief revenue officer, their CMO, whatever the case is. So I do think you can automate it, but we go, from 0 to 100, and there's a lot of gray area. It's not 0 or let's just go spray and pray. It's how can we do this intelligently and still keep in that resonation?
But do you think that companies have the same problems nowadays? Going back to Denise's statements, that in order to really sell someone, we need to really show that we understand their problems and the situation, the wider concept of the situation they're in. Is it fair to say that just because two companies, they both work in digital technology, they're both in Germany, they both got about 50 employees, they're both looking for seed funding, that they have the same problems? I think nowadays you can't say that.
Maybe they don't, but we can't solve all of them, right? So in the end, we do have one solution to sell, right? And we know that that particular group of people will think about the problem that we can solve in a particular way. And that is the important aspect. It's not that they all have the same problems. Maybe they don't, but if they have completely different problems, then I'm probably the wrong person to speak to. The interesting thing about context is that it lets us phrase or frame the solution that we have in the context that matters to these people. If they have a completely different problem at the moment, then this is probably a very long sales game that we're playing, but that's not the point, right?
What about industrial? Industry marketing, industry knowledge, providing people insights in relation to the actual market and how the market is changing and those kind of things, which are going to be beneficial to them as a group of people. Is that something that's, because we've been talking about is problem selling, trying to sell to their problems, but what about giving them insights that are just going to help them or be interesting to a certain group of people?
I think it can. I mean, like all things in well, I guess everything really. It depends, right? Those famous two words. It can add more context, right? An industry can add more context on top of the problem that you're solving. So, when all the legal frameworks changed for the fintech world, at the end of the day, if you were selling a solution that solved at a high level that problem for the banking industry, then that's a great way for you to contextualize your messaging. Mm-hmm. And you might take a different approach with the insurance industry and another different approach still for the fintech world, but fundamentally that's all still within the context of an industry. But it does depend. I mean, you may have, in our case, right, we sell intent data. Right now, for us, the context is we're going through a period of massive economic uncertainty. Everyone's struggling with their pipeline. Mm-hmm. So for us, the context is we can help you fill that gap. We don't need to get into the industry level conversations, really. Whereas, 6-9 months ago, we perhaps did use some of that context.
Mm.
I think too, going back to what Tobias was talking about, so the same company or the two different companies in the same space at the same size and targeting the same persona, is it guaranteed that they have the right pain points? No, but you also earn a lot of credibility when you make some assumptions and show that you do know about their market. I can assume you're struggling with A, B, or C, right? Wordsmith that. I assume you're struggling may not be the best wording. but you can still make some assumptions. And two, if you're a SaaS product, to Tobias's point, you don't want everybody to respond anyway. So that's great. They're disqualifying themselves. On the other hand, if you're a service provider, which I think quite a few people are that, are probably watching this, they can offer 3, 4, 5 different services. Statistically, the average meeting takes between 5 and 12 points of contact to actually get them. That could be an ad that they've seen. That doesn't have to be emails. 12 emails is a little excessive without a response. But you can take 3, 4, 5 different emails and test a different hypothesis as to what their issues are. And when you do make assumptions, fintech is very niche. I've been in that space. MarTech is very niche, been in that space, right? But you can still capture several of those people at once and market to them very similarly.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple of numbers around some of the things Tobias was saying as well, right? So one of the things we're able to see is across a whole market, how much of a market is in market, right? And some of you will have seen the stat 5%. Like 5% of companies that are in market at any one moment in time. One of the things that we see over a quarter is it's about 20 to 30%. And so to your point, Stephen, really at the end of the day, if you send a message and it's not connected today, if it's made an impression, then 2 months, 3 months down the line, if you're sending another message, it's likely to get a response. You've had a positive experience beforehand, sort of thing, or at least a non-negative, not a negative experience beforehand.
Okay, so guys, we're wrapping up. I just want to wrap up now. Going back to subject, AI lead generation. What would you give? What's the do's and don'ts? What would you say? I mean, let's look at. We can look at you can take it broad as you like, in terms of different types of marketing or prospecting, lead generation. What would your advice be to our audience? How can they help to generate more leads? Use AI, don't use AI, not really bothered. What's your advice? I just want to give all some takeaways.
I think it's really everyone's choice. So you really got to define what your market is. Like both you, Leon, and Tobias have been talking about. You understand who you're going after. Some of us may have to have a little bit more context in order to reach out to those. So does AI then work for them? In your instance, Leon, I'm not quite certain that it would necessarily behoove you because you've already built your business. I just think you've got to look at what your end goal is and whether or not you can achieve that end goal by yourself. And if you can't, then what tools do you need to help you through that process?
Totally agree with you there. I mean, I think understanding your market. I mean, I think this is like the basics of ABC of selling. I mean, if you don't understand what you're doing, you're not going to get the end result. But I mean, I think about more in terms of once you do understand your market, you do understand. Let's put it down. Okay, startups, SMEs, enterprise guys. What would you say? I mean, we've got experts here from different industries and different. Where do you see lead gen going? What is working? What is not working? Yeah, I mean, give us some insights here. Do you know what I mean? We know what's working for ourselves. I bet we're all specialists here. That's why we're here on this panel. What's working for our customers?
I think it comes down to application and intent. So application, we can apply AI in 1,000 different ways, right? And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I think AI will get there with personalization, resonation, context, all these different nuances, but it's not there yet. So can you use it with the masses? Yes. Would I say enterprise companies, even if you're small, selling into enterprise, would I recommend being an early adopter of some of these pieces of tech? Probably not, because they're overly generic up front. AI inherently is. It needs data. But the other piece is intent. If you're intending on just trying to disqualify as many people as you can, think about when you go buy a software product from a big company. I'm a big proponent of Salesforce. I think their sales process, though, is bullshit. It makes you not want to buy from them. It's irritating. It's frustrating. Same thing with a lot of other large companies. If your intent is to make your life easier, not the prospect's life easier, I call BS. That doesn't work. You have to be willing to take the time with the right prospect, which yes, means looking at intent, looking at their behavior, et cetera, for lead scoring. But if you're trying to just automate yourself out of the process and go for scale without meaningful relationships, you're going to be dead in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, I struggle with. I think I'm similar to Stephen in approach in that I love tech, right? I love the idea of AI. I want it to really work, and at the enterprise level, I don't feel it's yet there. I'm going to go and look at. I haven't seen Copy Factory, so I'm going. Eric, we're definitely having a chat if you're up for it later, because I'd love to see what you guys are doing.
Join.
But I'm yet to see enough contextual knowledge coming out of the AI tools to really make it work at the enterprise. So for companies selling to enterprise, which is where I am, right, is we sell to small, mid-sized businesses that sell to enterprise, and we don't want, when we notice that lack of contextualization, we notice the numbers drop significantly. But I have the opposite problem to Tobias. I don't get 6,000 leads coming in, so it's a different beast, right?
Which is probably the reason why my answer is, if you do that at scale with a large number of leads that you have to handle, you have no choice. If you want to improve scoring and move your score as early into the user journey as you can, you won't be able to do that with traditional metrics and just sum them up in a sheet or whatever. You need more sophisticated tools to calculate these scores, to put it plainly. And AI is one of the ways to do that. Build better models, merge more data is the way to go, and it's just going to increase. So, and that is an experimentation, an ongoing experimentation for anyone who wants to build a funnel like that. Not all AI versions, data sources, models work for every lead funnel. So you will have to build something that is very custom to the data sources that you have available, to the interactions that your clients have throughout the entire journey, be that on the marketing side or on the sales side, and merge that into something that you can actually connect the number to in the end. And I think machine learning models are a core part of making that work going forward, as numbers and data that's available increases more and more. So yeah, from my point of view, that is the only way forward in that segment. But completely agree with the others on, there's a limit. If you cross that threshold of personal interaction, it's just not there yet. So
Eric?
Yeah,
Please.
like I'd say if you're a more traditional sales team, if you're not doing 6,000 leads a month, I think generally where I've seen people go wrong with AI is if your sales process isn't working, you haven't found something that's working at the moment, why are you trying to scale it?
Yeah.
So try to figure out how to make something work manually, and then try to find the solution. Okay, well, it's working now. Now how can we 5 or 10x this by being more efficient? I think that's the sort of not.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that's, for me, is really the key, the key here. And this is where I really add value to my customers, is that a lot of them, they really overcomplicate what they're actually selling. They're not thinking about it from the customer side. We've got all this technology and I'm like, wow, I don't understand it. Break it down for me. So it's this, this, and this. Why don't you just say this, this, and this? Really, I think for me, we need to help our companies, our customers, especially we've got a lot of techies nowadays who are creating all these really fantastic products. But communicating those products, hey, mate, what? No, stay out of it. Just let me do this, And I think, how do you communicate your product to the market in the most simplistic way? And when you do that with a very, very clear value proposition, then you start getting the right type of customers. I think then that is the thing. It's not about leads at mass. I really don't get this. I think getting the right type of customer then you can turn your customers into your sales force, and they'll do the lead gen for you. Do you know? And I'm a firm believer in that. I think obviously if you've got a transactional sales problem, I mean, this is a complete different. You know, you do need mass, and if you're doing enterprise, you do need quality. I would love to understand, Denise, about this nurturing process, because I think a lot of my customers are going to struggle with that. And, you know, and I've been looking to design a tool like that, which really does does the nurturing process. So I'm really, really interested to find out more about that. But yeah, you know, does anybody else have anything to say on that? Because we're literally technically meant to be over now.
You've said it eloquently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I want to find out a bit. Riaz, I think we all going to talk. I mean, Tobias, me and you, we talk all the time. We're just around the corner from each other. Yeah, but I definitely wanted to talk to you guys and find out a bit more about what you guys are doing. And Eric, I said to you, didn't I say to you, buddy, that, you know, I mean, I know people will be interested in your solution. So because I think you have a very, very niche, and it's a very, very unique service offering. And I know other companies. So let's talk and let's solidify our deals, mate. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Guys, Stephen, me and you need to catch up as well, and Riaz, we're going to catch up as well. Yeah. Listen,
Absolutely.
guys, thank you very much for your time. It's really, really been a pleasure speaking with you guys. We're going to take a quick break now, I believe, and I'll contact you guys all by email after the session, and probably the end of the day or next week, early next week, we talk and we catch up. Yeah, guys, thank you for your time. Thank
you, Leon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.
See ya.